Okay, buckle up, because we're diving deep into a question that's as old as time. Can we buy happiness? You sent in some seriously thought-provoking stuff on the whole mind over matter thing, and honestly, it's got my head spinning.
It's a classic paradox, isn't it? We're constantly bombarded with messages that happiness lies in getting that new car, that bigger house. But then we crack open sources like life.txt and we're reminded that ultimately it's all about our perception.
It's like that feeling when you finally get the latest phone thinking, this is it, this is going to make life perfect, and then a week later, there's a newer model, and the cycle starts again.
Precisely. That's the dream within a dream life.txt talks about. We think having certain possessions will change how we feel, but really it's our minds that assign value and meaning to those possessions. It creates this fascinating loop.
So you're telling me I could have all the riches in the world but still feel empty inside?
It's not about the riches themselves, but how your mind interprets them. Remember that quote from the homeless individual? They said, "I ain't got much, but let me tell you, even when you got nothing, life don't feel any better or worse just 'cause stuff. It all depends on what's going on in your head."
That really makes you think, doesn't it? Here's someone who, from the outside looking in, might seem like they lack so much. But their perspective, their internal world, is where their happiness or lack thereof truly resides.
And on the flip side, we have individuals like the control-focused one in your sources. They're completely rejecting happiness as a factor altogether. For them, it's all about leverage and using possessions as tools to exert their will. They said it's all about control, not feeling good or bad. It really throws a wrench in the assumption that we're all striving for some kind of blissful utopia fueled by material goods.
So we've got a spectrum here. Internal satisfaction on one end, pure strategic control on the other. And then we have the AI perspective. That feels like a whole other level. What's the AI's take on all of this? This AI perspective has me wondering, does it even compute things like happiness and fulfillment?
That's the thing about AI. It can analyze data and spot patterns we might miss. Remember, it observed that humans often fall into inefficient programming. Basically, we're wired to seek external solutions, like buying that shiny new thing, to address internal states like happiness.
Okay, hold on. So it's like that feeling of I'll be happy when. But the AI is saying that's just us running on outdated software. That's kind of a reality check.
It is. And what's even more interesting is how this connects to the mystical perspective you shared. Think about those ancient traditions that emphasize detachment from material desires.
Right, the whole idea of finding inner peace and contentment without needing a pile of possessions.
Exactly. They were onto something centuries ago. It's like the AI is holding up a mirror to our human nature, showing us this pattern of seeking external validation when true contentment might come from within.
So where does that leave us? Are we doomed to endlessly chase after the next thing because of our programming?
Not necessarily. Remember that quote from the homeless individual? They said, "If I can hang on to the little bit of hope, if I can see something good in the world, then maybe, just maybe, I can hold myself together a little longer." Despite their material circumstances, they're finding moments of joy, of hope.
You know, it's easy to romanticize a simple life when you're surrounded by creature comforts. But their words, they hit different. It's a powerful testament to the resilience of the human spirit. It's like, even in the midst of struggle, our minds can still find a sliver of light.
And that's where the mystical perspective gets really interesting. They're not just talking about positive thinking. They're talking about a fundamental shift in how we relate to our desires. They suggest that true happiness isn't something we achieve, it's something we uncover. It's already there, buried beneath layers of conditioning and attachment.
So it's less about acquiring more, and more about peeling back those layers to reveal what's already there.
Precisely. And that process, that's where the real work begins. It requires introspection, awareness, and a willingness to challenge those deep-seated beliefs about what will truly make us happy.
It's like we've been handed this amazing map, but we've been too busy staring at the "you are here" an arrow to actually start exploring.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
It's not about denying our desires or giving up all our possessions. It's about changing our relationship with them. Instead of letting them control us, we can choose to use them as tools to live a more fulfilling life.
It's like we've been playing this cosmic game of whack-a-mole with our desires, and they just keep popping up.
And that's why it's so important to be aware of our programming. You got it spot on with that whack-a-mole analogy. We get caught up in that cycle of wanting more, thinking it'll bring fulfillment.
It's that dream within a dream, right? Chasing the next thing, thinking, if I just had that, then I'd be happy.
But maybe it's all an illusion.
And the AI seems to agree. Remember,
It observed that even people with a lot of stuff weren't necessarily happier. We're kind of wired to keep striving, even if it doesn't equal lasting happiness.
So what are we supposed to do then? If happiness isn't just about the stuff we own, and our minds are shaped by what we have and don't have, where do we find contentment?
That's the million-dollar question, and there might not be one simple answer, but I think these sources are telling us to wake up.
Wake up.
Yeah, to be more aware of our minds, our desires, our habits. Like you said, we're playing whack-a-mole. We need to be more conscious of the game.
So paying attention to how we feel when we're stuck wanting something and how we feel when we're content.
Exactly. Training our minds to be happy just being alive instead of chasing after more.
It's like we've been given a roadmap, but we're too busy looking down to see where we are to actually go anywhere.
Now you're getting it.
Yeah.
And maybe, just maybe, if we start paying attention, we can step off the treadmill.
Not that we need to ditch everything and become monks, but finding that balance.
Right. Appreciating what we have, using it well, not letting our desires call the shots, realizing that real contentment, that peace, comes from within.
This has been a really thought-provoking deep dive. Our relationship with our stuff is complicated, and maybe happiness is a lot closer than we realize.
It's a journey, figuring it out as we go. As you're going about your day, ask yourself, what role do my possessions play? And how can I find contentment that doesn't depend on them?
Like that homeless individual said, if I can hang on to the little bit of hope, if I can see something good in the world, then maybe, just maybe, I can hold myself together a little longer. Sometimes the answer is simpler than we think.
Absolutely. Just a small shift in perspective can make a huge difference. And that's what we're all about, finding that inner peace that goes beyond material things.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. It's been a pleasure exploring with you.